All right, everybody, welcome back to another Thursday Q&A. We're going to be running through 3 different questions today. All have to do with a little bit of early season hunting, so it's going to be good. Jacob, how are you?
I'm doing great. Got my deer killing shirt on. Y'all heard this last Thursday's episode. I had a pretty awesome hunt. I say awesome. We got to sling some arrows. Andrew had an opportunity, saw some piebald deer, all kinds of crazy stuff. So he was got my buck on my shirt. It's pretty sweet.
It's beautiful.
Beautiful. Setting the stage for this bow season.
All right, we're going to roll right into some Q&As here. The first one up is James Ewing from Texas. Question about property line setup distance.
Hey guys, this is James in North Texas. This is my second season hunting. Started listening to you last year when I first went hunting. I bumped 2 deer last year and saw 2 doe. But my question for you is, I'm out summer scouting, and how close to the property line of public to private are you guys willing to hunt? Right now I've right on the property line. It's a nice edge, but as you can see, there's a tree stand right behind me. It's probably the property owners, but I know here in Texas there is some regulation onto, depending on the WMA, how close to the property line you're allowed to hunt. But I just wanted to get your guys' opinion on how close, like I said, to the actual private versus public line you guys are willing to hunt. Because I have a couple more spots I want to check out, but they're like fingers pointing, and if the deer goes east, south, or west, he's on private. So just wanted to get your guys' opinion on that. Love the show. I've been trying to get as much information as I can from you guys. Thanks.
All right, this is very situation dependent, I feel like. If you're bow hunting, I feel like you got to be a lot more careful around property lines, meaning like he included a screenshot, which I'm not going to put in the video because it's a public land, but the screenshot is like a little peninsula public that jets out into a bunch of private, and it doesn't look very wide. I mean, it maybe is like 50 yards wide or something.
Mm-hmm.
That's a spot I probably would not bow hunt unless you know how to get in contact with those landowners and you can contact them, maybe probably even ahead of time, and be like, hey, if I shoot something, can I track it through your property? Because like they're just going to run when you're bow hunting. Now, if I was rifle hunting, I'd feel a lot better about hunting that spot because you can shoot them right through the front shoulders and they're not really going to go far most of the time.
Yeah,
a lot of times they're going to just drop. So it depends on that. Now, last week, Greg shot that buck on our hunt in Georgia from last week's episode. He was hunting right on the property line, but he had a lot of room. Like, it's just weird. It's like how the situation sets up. Like, most of the deer were either going to be coming off of the private or they were going to be coming down the edge of that private land. And then he had this big, nice bottom right there below. And so it's like, if you shoot a deer with a bow, they're probably going right down there if you make a good shot on them. So like in that situation, I mean, yeah, you can hunt right on the property line. And then, we've got spots where we'll rifle hunt some clear cuts. I mean, we'll get right on the property line and we'll face our back to the private land and face out into the public. Like, it depends on if your public land has like a law around how far away you have to be from the property line. But
I haven't seen that. I mean, there's definitely, I know, plenty of regulations on being anywhere between 100, 150, 200 plus yards away from a dwelling, and in some places off paved roads. So I understand that there's some rules there on the public land thing. Especially bow hunting, I don't want to be close enough that if something happens, he's getting onto private.
Yep.
But flip side, there's some situations like where we hunted in Georgia last week, going in by water, skinny little pieces of public land. A lot of times, you might have a 100-yard wide strip between the water line and private land.
Mm-hmm.
You're kind of right there in the middle. So you just got to have the full focus. Like in that circumstance, I'm only going to take a really good shot.
Mm-hmm. Make
sure it's actually, I'm not going to try to chance anything.
Yep.
Because again, it gets over the property owner. You're going to have to try to make some calls, and hopefully you can get.
Hopefully they let you go get it.
Yeah, be very nice, very convincing. Apologize for the situation, but want to be respectful of their property and come retrieve their deer, or go retrieve that deer that you shot, and then get off the property. In that kind of circumstance, yeah, like those are one of those areas that, I mean, you could do it, but if it's like a little peninsula, I didn't know what the property looked like, but if it's a little peninsula and you get public on both sides of you, I mean, that's super, super tough if it's real narrow like that. Because, I mean, in all honesty, like, yeah, I've shot deer that went 25 yards and went down with a bow.
Yep.
Okay. I've also shot deer that went 150 yards and then went down.
Yep.
So it's like, I don't know. Is it going to be one of those 20-yard tracks? Or because, like, you hit them in the same spot, two different deer, and they act completely different.
Yep.
So I don't know. Like, that would make me kind of nervous. But, like, yeah, with gun hunting and stuff, my thing is I want to be able, especially on some of these areas that we've hunted where kind of skinnier piece of public, I want to be able to see to, because there's normally a habitat edge at the property line. I want to be able to see to that property line, but I want to be off the property line with a rifle 100 yards at least, depending on if I have that much room. But the big thing is just being respectful. Like, if you're going to sit by, if you happen to get, like, the position and where the pinch point is coming off that private, and you're going to sit there, especially bow hunting or gun hunting, you better be facing away from the private land.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Because the last thing you want to have happen, and double make sure you are not on that private property. Double check with Onyx, paint, signs, everything, and just confirm that you're not on their property. Because the worst thing you could do, or one of the worst things is for a bad altercation, you sit in a spot like that, you're facing private, which you should not be doing, especially sitting right there on the property line, and landowner comes by, drives by, walks by, whatever, sees you.
Yep.
You're going to have, there's going to be issues there. So just hunt smart with
It's going to get awkward.
Yeah. But the big thing is like, man, especially bow hunting, I want a little bit of distance. Like, there was places, like one of the spots we hunted in Georgia, which we talked about in last week's episode, Thursday episode on the recap. There was a spot we hunted at the head of a slough where the private land was maybe 50 yards from us. And I was like, it was one of those spots, and there's a scrape right there in front of us. And I'm like, if one comes in here, I got to get this deer down quick.
Smoke them.
Because if not, the thick cover's right there on right there on the private.
Yep.
So it's just like that kind of consideration. Like, I'm not taking a 30-yard shot on a buck, especially if it's 30 yards from me, 20 yards from the property line.
Yeah.
Definitely not doing that. So you have to have some understanding with it, but just be super respectful. Also, I've seen this in some, like we had the episode last summer with Lance Smathers, and he talked about this in Mississippi, where he kind of scouts from the public, but looking at private adjacent to it on aerial imagery, Onyx, Google Earth, stuff like that, looking for where people have food plots, where people have feeders, because I'm like, all the good covers on public, the outside of oaks dropping, some of the better food is right there on the private, so the deer are going that way. You just got to kind of set yourself up to be able to catch them going to that public or going to that private. His circumstance is probably not like that. It sounds like they're coming off the private, and they're probably staying on the private and then kind of going through that little bottleneck on that peninsula. That's a little bit different circumstance that I'm not super interested in.
Yeah. That's a good point too about Georgia, by the way. So the hunt where I saw that piebald deer, there was a really nice thicket on the private, and there was water oaks and muscadine vines dropping on the public, and that's what the deer were coming to. And there was a pretty good setup, but it was only like 40 yards off the edge of the thicket on the private. And especially with the recurve bow, I was like, I don't know if I want to really sit that close, because if I shoot a deer, it's probably going to want to go into that thicket. So I need to sit like 100 yards off. So hopefully it's dead before it gets there. Or, a lot of times they'll start running one direction when they're mortally wounded, and then they'll kind of veer. Like, especially when they're hurt real bad, they'll veer and maybe go downhill a little bit. So I set up with that in mind, where I'm like, well, if I shoot one, it's probably, if it does run that way, it's probably not going to make it, or it's going to turn and kind of go off in this bottom and die down there.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
And thankfully the deer I shot, that's how it was, because I had hiked up this little ridge. I was probably sitting 35, 40 yards off the private, but the deer came from the water side on the public, came up to me. I shot it. It went right back down that direction and wrapped around the ridge, and then died right there, thankfully. Because you're sitting there and you can see the property line and the paint lines going through the woods higher up on that ridge, and thankfully she went down and around. But it's like, yeah, you just got to be cautious of that and respect the private landowners. And this is not even just public to private. This is also private to private. If you're hunting private, same kind of sense. Some of the biggest disagreements I've seen in the past from people I know that had private land is them or neighbors hunting property lines and setting up stands or blinds where intentionally you can see and potentially shoot across property line very easily. So you want to be real respectful of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and a lot of times, especially in the deep south, you kind of end up a lot of times finding good spots around property lines. And the reason for that is because different landowners manage their properties differently. So what might be a pine thicket on one property might give way over into some nice upland hardwoods on the very next property because, this landowner cut his timber 6 years ago and this guy didn't.
Yep.
And so it creates habitat edges. It creates good spots. Those property lines do. So you just got to be careful hunting around them.
Yeah, property lines have some of the best habitat diversity because of that.
Yep.
Different management of the timber and so on. So naturally, you're going to see deer traveling through those. And it's not like they're like intentionally trying to jump from one property to the next property. They don't know about property lines. They just know that's the habitat diversity. They got good cover here. They got good food here. They can kind of meander through that area.
Yeah.
So you just got to pay attention.
Yeah, because back in the day, me and you'd be scouting. We're like, why are all the good spots always right there on the edge? And then it finally dawned on us why. That kind of reminds me, too, of some of the suburban bow hunters that we talked to, like Taylor Chamberlain. He's hunting up in Virginia and everything. Hunting, usually large lots. Like, he's hunting in very nice neighborhoods. But not like big properties by any means. And I remember he was telling us the kind of shots that he specifically looks for when property lines could potentially be an issue, where he doesn't necessarily want to shoot a deer perfectly broadside. He usually wants them to turn and get a little bit quartered away so you can kind of angle that arrow up through the lungs and just do more damage.
And actually, we need to talk to Taylor and ask him about this. Because at the time we interviewed him, and we had interviewed him like 7 years ago.
Yeah.
And like legit had the card corrupted, so there was no episode. Like,
I think we did end up interviewing him after that at some point.
You think so?
I think we did. Did we not?
I don't know.
We had a hilarious episode with him. Gosh, man, he's so funny.
Yeah, deer dying in the back of like a senator's pool or something in the pool.
I think it was a Supreme Court justice.
Yeah, well, it had to pay to get that thing taken care of. But he was a big fan of a fairly heavy arrow. I say fairly heavy, I think like 500, 550 grains, but using mechanical.
Yep.
Big mechanical. Quarter wave shot, inside 20 yards, leg forward, hold tight to the shoulder, and just zip it on through there. And he's like, they don't go more than 20 or 30 yards.
Yeah, because if you think about how the lungs are positioned and really everything, like you're getting more surface area, I guess, cut, than punching a hole through both sides. You're kind of going into an angle, and I guess it just causes more trauma.
Yeah.
Because he's like, I need him dead within like 50 yards tops. And that seems to work, and he kills a bunch of deer.
Yeah.
A bunch.
He can hunt 365 days a year.
Yep.
There's no closed season inside some of those big suburban areas outside of D.C. and around D.C. And I know at the time when we had interviewed him, he'd killed more deer than anybody I'd ever heard of, ever.
Yep.
Like,
he's like a deer exterminator.
4-digit harvest numbers.
Yep.
Which is crazy to think about. So, like, a guy like that has that much shooting experience with a bow, I'm like, I'm taking notes from you.
Yeah, 100%. All right, next question. Appreciate that question, James. Good luck this year. Keep us posted. This one is from William Ware from Alabama. Subject is rubs. Timely with this Monday's episode.
How y'all guys doing? All right, here's my question. I'm doing a little scouting. And it's September the 1st, Wilcox County, Alabama. And I've always noticed this, and I always wondered why. I got a bunch of historical rubs in here. Right here. Right there. Right there. There's some more over there. All of these rubs are on cedar trees. Smaller cedar trees, usually 2 inches and under. Why is that? Like, there's plenty of other trees here to rub, whether it's ironwood, oak, sweet gum, but I've always noticed that one of the first trees they're gonna rub is gonna be a cedar tree. I don't really know why. Maybe y'all can answer that.
I love this question. Interesting question. I think it's twofold. One, you mentioned like ironwoods. Well, I think it's a couple things, maybe 3 things. Like ironwoods, oaks, things like that. An ironwood's called an ironwood because it's got really hard wood. Oak's really hard. So I think they don't like rubbing them just because of how hard the bark is. It's harder for them to get through that. Second of all, on something like a cedar tree, for instance, it's very aromatic, so it puts off a lot of scent when they rub it. So I think that's a factor. Dr. Grant Woods was telling us that a couple weeks ago.
The sassafras.
Yeah, and sassafras too. That's another one. So I think they like the scent that comes off of it. And 3, it's very noticeable when they rub big cedar. Like you spot a cedar tree way off through the woods, and you're like, oh, there's a rub way up there. Same thing with here in central Alabama, we've got hazel alders, and they grow down in the bottoms. And when a buck rubs those, they're like orange, blaze orange, like Jacob's beard. And you can see them through way off through the woods. So I think that's another reason that they like rubbing is there's got to be some kind of visual aspect to it, at least in some situations. But what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, Dr. Grant Woods did a whole study on this, I think, when he said he was at Clemson. And like part of their conclusion was, find those big rubs. And where he was at in South Carolina was on sassafras trees. And he thinks a lot of it was because it's softer wood, but it's very aromatic.
Yep.
And they can smell not only potentially some of the glands and pheromones and everything they're leaving in that tree with the rub, but also they can smell that rub from a distance as well. And I think that plays a factor because I've noticed the same thing. Cedars, like when I've hunted Arkansas, you get on one of those big river bottoms and there ain't many cedars, but by God, when you found a cedar,
Yep.
if it wasn't rubbed, you had questions. Like seriously.
Yep. Maybe the spot isn't that great.
Yeah, because like if you'd walk through, if you found a patch of cedars, about every one of them were about killed from getting rubbed. I mean, just huge rubs, and they wouldn't really touch anything else for the most part. That's pretty much what they were really focusing on. And every now and then you get like little patches of cedars. You get a little high ground off the water, you'd find some cedars, and that's what they were really tearing up. But yeah, I think definitely. I feel like especially with cedars, not only like the aromatics, but I think it's definitely visual based too. I mean, like you said, like you can see a cedar rubbed from a long distance away, especially if it's semi-open woods. Those woods look kind of open as well. And also one thing I noticed, cedars when they heal up, because I hunted this one spot in Arkansas 2 or 3 years in a row, down there in the bottoms, and when a cedar, you see it rub for the first time, like, dude, that thing's impressive. You go back there the next year or that summer, you could barely tell that thing. I mean, it's scarred up, but like, unless you really knew what you were looking at, you're like, I don't know if that's a rub. But then I had photos of that rub from last year. I'm like, that thing was destroyed.
Yep.
It's amazing how much they kind of heal up and they kind of go gray on that side. They get that kind of how it heals. It goes gray. You have that weird looking scar. And that was actually really cool to kind of see like year over year how those rubs healed. And a lot of times they weren't hitting the same tree 2 years in a row. 100 or 3 years in a row, same time frame. They would kind of shift a little bit. It'd be like these patch of cedars would get hit. The next year it would shift like literally 30 yards over to another little patch. Those would get hit that following year and so on. But yeah, cedars are one of those things. Like if you walk through an area and like I ain't seeing the cedars rubbed, I'm a little worried.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Yeah, one time when I was a kid, I was squirrel hunting this one spot with Colton. And when I was squirrel hunting, there's just one cedar. It was kind of like what you're talking about. Like, wasn't a lot of cedars around in this bottom. There's one cedar down there. And a nice buck actually came down into that bottom when I was sitting there squirrel hunting. I was like 30 yards away, just sitting on the ground. And he came up and he just like shredded that cedar tree, like 30 yards from me. And I was like, whoa. I mean, that was the first time I'd ever seen a deer do that. So that was really cool. But we kept hunting that for a couple of years. And for the next 2 seasons, I would go down there and I would look at that cedar tree. It was the only one in there, so I knew which one it was. And just seeing how it healed. And that taught me a lot about like gauging how old a cedar rub was. And yeah, year 2, I was like, is that the tree that was rubbed? And then you look at it and you're like, oh yeah, there's a scar. And then the second year, it was like barely even noticeable that it was rubbed. So that was pretty neat. But yeah, interesting stuff. So
pine trees, when you see them rub a pine tree, I think the same thing. It's just those suckers get so sappy.
Yep.
I mean, like we've killed bucks before. You grab their antlers and they're tacky from rubbing pine trees.
Yep.
And like you can smell it on them. But it's like we see some pine tree. That's one of my favorite rubs to find. I love finding a pine tree that's about 3.5, 4 inches diameter that is literally like wallowed out on one side. Like it's completely rubbed. Like as Dr. Woods talked about again a handful of weeks ago, like they killed that pine tree. Yeah, the pine tree's dead. Like it's not coming.
Girdled that, but
yeah, I mean it's a 12-foot pine tree that is dead. But those are awesome to find. I found a huge one last year during the early bow season. I say huge one. It was a pine tree, big around my calves, which is pretty big. I mean, it's probably about 9 inches diameter at the base, and they had to rub that sucker to them. I was like, could kill this tree.
Yeah, love seeing it. All right, next up, another fellow Alabamian. This is Case from Alabama. He said, what to do in terrain when food and cover are abundant.
Hey gents, I'm on the transition of a 5-year pine stand, and the bottom, the SMZ creek bottom that runs through them. Creek bottom runs, mostly east to west, and this is a north-facing slope coming down, and obviously there's oaks, loaded oaks, in this little spot, most of the way down, because what seems to be a bumper crop year. So what kind of drew me to this spot is these are the low spots in the pine thicket. So you can see it kind of starts rolling up the hill and it rolls down right here. So this is kind of the low spot in here. So would y'all pick this out as a potential one-up along this whole entire edge? Because there's pretty much oaks going kind of, loaded oaks all the way down. So that's what kind of drew me to, was just a low spot. I know you talked about on the podcast plenty of times about low spots and, having deer travel. Let me know what y'all think. Appreciate what y'all do. And I've learned a crap ton from y'all's podcast. So y'all keep doing the good work. Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. That looks like a good spot. 5-year-old cut. That cut's kind of in its prime right now. Looks like you could still probably gun hunt it if you could get high enough in a tree and see down into it. And then hunting the low spots. I think you're right on track. The challenging part about something like that is just pinpointing exactly where the deer are going to be in it. Like, especially if it's like a big giant cut like that and you've got SMZs or bottoms all around it. They could kind of be coming out anywhere. The times I've had success in areas like that is usually if you've got a low spot that's coming down out of those cuts. I've had much better success actually hunting the mouth of that SMZ where it's coming out of the cut and it opens into a bigger bottom. I've had more luck hunting something like that rather than going all the way up into that cut. Kind of like where you were standing, where you're like up in the middle of it, kind of. Because the problem with walking up into those SMZs like that is those deer could be bedded anywhere in that cut. They could be right in the middle of it, or they're probably going to be closer to the edges a lot of times, especially on those ridge points. So, like if you've got a cut that's just like basically like a circle, for instance, and it's like a pizza, okay? The cut is the pizza. And then you take out one slice of pizza, and that's your SMZ that runs up into the middle, kind of like that. If you walk up into that SMZ, the deer were probably bedded on the points, like where the pizza crust is at. They're probably out there on the edges. So you walked past them to get up in there. So you probably either alerted them or they're not going to hook and come back up into that anyways. So that's just something that I've noticed. And we were kind of talking about it with our recent Georgia hunt, where the feed tree hunting there is just so effective. And I think one reason is because you can't go up into the cuts like that because they're all on private. All the cuts are on private. So the public was nothing but the hardwoods. And so you're kind of forced to hunt the ridge points and the openings of those SMCs and the openings of those creek bottoms rather than kind of violate that cover and go all the way up in there.
That was a good analogy. I like that pizza crust. They're out by the pizza crust.
Yeah, thinking on my feet.
Yeah, there's so much with that. Yeah, one thing that we've realized, and we've interviewed guys that have had really good success bow hunting inside those tight little SMZs. My biggest worry isn't necessarily them hearing me or seeing me, it's smelling me. Because the wind will swirl if there is any wind, unless it is blowing right down that drainage coming out of that cut. It will swirl. If it's one of those 4 or 5 mile an hour wind, like breezy, little light breeze days, the wind is going to kick like crazy. And that's where it makes it really challenging when you get in one of those little low spots, morning, evening, unless it is dead calm or super, super light winds. It could be very challenging just because, again, your scent is kicking everywhere, especially if it's got some decent elevation drop. If it's only 5-10 feet of elevation change, it's still going to swirl a little bit, but it's not going to be as drastic as if it's a 25-foot drop kind of into the bottom of the SMZ, and it kind of goes up and gets a little less steep as it goes into those cuts. But that's the challenge. Like that, I talked to some guys at the hunting club about that. Because one of the guys was like, man, I just hunt these ridge tops. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, I'd rather be down there in those bottoms. He's like, well, how are you gonna do that with the wind swirl? I'm like, you got to have the right conditions. You got to have one of those super calm days. But with the super calm days, especially in the evening, you got to be so quiet because they can hear everything.
Yep.
So it's a double whammy of like, you kind of calm days to hunt some of those spots really effectively. But then getting in and getting out quietly is kind of the problem on those calm days. So it's like kind of need calm with like a little bit of rain, make everything a little bit quiet, and then slip in and slip out. But it looks good. I mean, anytime you get that habitat diversity like that, and you got oaks down the bottom right there that are going to be dropping acorns, but they're not like hundreds of acres of hardwoods and oak trees, but you just have some slivers, that's phenomenal. That's the thing I'm excited about this year. Like, I feel like this year with heavy mass that we're having, we've already had a lot of guys tell me they're already dropping. I know down south, going to Emmy's parents' house down south Alabama, willow oaks have been dropping for like 2 weeks. Them suckers, we were at her grandparents' backyard, and dude, they had one big old willow oak that was raining. Like you're standing underneath it, it's taking the cars and everything. Squirrels are having a blast. But it is, I think years with heavy mass, this is the advantage that you have if you're hunting those that more pine country where it's just SMZs, little creek bottoms, because you don't have nearly as many oaks anyways. So it should draw those deer down there, and you should be able to find that feed sign a little bit easier because you don't have to cover as much ground. Like they are in a very small area of the landscape you're hunting in. But yeah, I mean, it looks awesome though. But again, low spots be great. Just really pay attention to the wind, see how it swirls down in there. And just consider that when you go to set up. There's more of you guys getting into saddle hunting than ever before, and a common question we always get is how do you get comfortable in a saddle? Because there's so many moving parts. And today I'm gonna give you 3 of the best tips that I have for getting comfortable in the saddle after doing this for about 8.5 years. Number 1 is tether height. Setting your tether at the right height is gonna give you extreme comfort, but this is one big reason why you need to practice with it. I like mine right at nose level when I'm standing on the platform. The other is your bridge length. Having an adjustable bridge on your saddle makes it extremely comfortable to fine tune that comfort, and I like mine extended out almost all the way. The third is how you sit in your saddle. Some people like the saddle sitting just below the belt line, which I've done in some saddles in the past. That made it more comfortable. Some are right at the belt line, and some are a little bit above the belt line. Now, having a very comfortable saddle makes it really easy to do all this stuff with less adjustment. And the Lone Star saddle from Latitude Outdoors is that saddle for me personally. I really like this saddle, and I really like the hip pinch reduction system that's built into the saddle that gives me a lot more comfort all day long with less adjustments needed. If you want to check out the Lone Star saddle from Latitude Outdoors, you can go to latitudeoutdoors.com for more information.
One thing we talk about with almost every guest on this show is map scouting. My favorite map scouting tool is LiDAR. If you're unfamiliar, LiDAR is basically like a 3D scan of the Earth's surface. I like to say it kind of takes away all the surprises. LiDAR is now available on onX Hunt on their topography map. If you go to your app right now, click on the topography map, you can flip on that LiDAR feature and boom, it's gonna come on and you're gonna see what I'm talking about. The LiDAR is gonna allow you to see things that are normally hidden from view. This might be ditches, bends in creeks, rocks, old road beds. I personally love old road beds because deer like to walk them. They're great places to find scrapes. They're great camera locations. And before, an old roadbed or an old logging road might be something that you kind of happen upon while you're out scouting or hunting. Well, now with the LiDAR, before I go into an area, I can turn on that LiDAR and I can see exactly where those roadbeds are. Even old logging roads from the 1930s, you can still see them on there. So that allows me to go straight to those spots and check them out. It's just an incredibly helpful tool, and it's available now on onX Hunt. And hey, if you want to get 20% off your onX Elite membership, you can use the promo code SOUTHERN. Like I said, it's going to save you 20%. Go check out that LiDAR feature. You'll be glad you did. Know where you stand with onX Hunt. Next up, we've got some an update maybe on something that we talked about a little bit earlier this year about how, earlier this season, college football started. Bama got whooped up on by Florida State,
And we were worried.
we were worried.
I'm an Alabama fan, but we were worried like, dude, everybody's gonna be in the woods this year because ain't nobody gonna watch Alabama or Auburn football.
Yep.
Well, that turned around.
Yeah, so Bama's doing good now, which means that people are probably going to be watching football instead of hunting. So it's good news.
It's good news
for Alabamians everywhere.
Yeah, unless you're a diehard football watcher. I mean, that's the case. Just gotta do what you gotta do. But yeah, like we have like last year specifically, we had a couple of rough games and everything. Actually, quite a few rough games. There was more people out for a fact.
Yep.
Like I can remember like the handful of like last 2 national championship years for Alabama. There were certain hunts, especially when you got into like December, and it was like early December, the last couple games before you got into SEC championship.
Yep.
Dude, there weren't nobody out. I mean, there'd be a few. They go out for a morning hunt. They ain't sit in the afternoon.
No.
Ain't no way.
You get that 2:30 kickoff.
That's what you want.
Yeah, dude. It's like a private. I mean, it's like you got the whole place to yourself.
That's. I wish if I could set Alabama's schedule and Auburn's schedule, it would be either 11 or 2:30 games all season. All season. It'd be one of the two, man. So, which I'm more of a morning hunter anyway, so both of those still don't help me that much. But it's whatever. But yeah, that is a funny, good update that just kind of happened.
Yeah. So Bama beat Georgia right before we recorded this. So good news for Alabamians who hunt public ground, or your hunting club for that matter. Same thing with the old hunting clubs. All right, speaking of hunting clubs, you haven't been out at yours at all. So no updates.
No updates
whatsoever. Okay.
No updates.
Yeah, we on our club we kind of have moved our cameras around just a little bit, and I think I mentioned on here that I had scouted a couple weeks ago, or really I guess it was probably a month and a half ago now, and I had been getting bucks in this one spot on camera pretty consistently, and it's kind of died down. It's just right in the middle of this longleaf thicket on a roadbed where they're crossing the roadbed. It's kind of died down. Still getting a couple deer there, but nothing crazy. So I was like, well, I don't think they left. So I went around and I actually walked the perimeter of the pine thicket and found a scrape that was opened up, like actually opened up on the ground, like the ground was scratched out. And that was in August at some point. And I started pretty much immediately getting a couple bucks working that licking branch and everything in velvet. And then we did one of these Thursday episodes shortly after that where we were talking about the shift that was probably about to start happening, where, certain plants are changing, becoming more palatable. Some are becoming less palatable. Some of the oaks are starting to drop a little bit. Some of the velvet's starting to come off. Like probably about 3/4 of the bucks I'm getting on camera right now are out of velvet. And, dude, sure enough, they shifted like crazy. I mean, I had like 5 new bucks show up just out of nowhere, totally out of nowhere. A couple of them are pretty nice. Definitely shooters.
So are you actually believing the shift now? Because you used to be like, oh, they don't shift. Like, most of them just stay there. But
well,
you have 5 new ones. That's pretty good.
That's pretty good, man. I'm kind of excited now. I don't know. My thing about the shift is I think that some of them shift far. I think most of them don't shift that far.
Well,
where we're at.
Don't shift that far. That means from being on camera or being off camera to being on camera.
Oh, I know. But they're probably utilizing the same thickets, the same 2 or 3 thickets. But maybe now they've kind of transitioned where instead of using thicket number 1 more, they're using thicket number 3 more. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's what it is. But we got several on camera. Dude, 6 points. 6 points galore.
Alabama special.
There's 6 points all over the dang place.
105-inch 6-point.
Yep.
Recurve. Send that wooden. Yeah. Well, you don't. Do you have wooden arrows?
No.
Y'all carbon.
Carbon.
You ain't that traditional.
I ain't that traditional. Dude, we were out training Truvy out there this morning. Found a big old arrowhead.
Oh, really?
Yep, in a clear cut.
Really?
Yeah, I was all fired up about it. So was Piper. Tiff was like, it's just a rock. I was like, no, it's more than that. It's cool. Let Piper pick it up. That was cool. But anyways, yeah, so
Dude,
so
we
they
can go back and look. What are you talking about?
I don't know. I got it marked.
Is that the same one they burned?
Mm-hmm.
They need to burn it again. Mm-hmm. And after they burn it, big rain comes with it, and then go walk.
Yep. Yeah. But anyways, yeah, I think they shift around a little bit. I was talking to Cody. I was like, why do we have so many freaking 6 points around here? And I was like, do we have a 6-point June or something? And he actually made a really good point. He's like, no, it's because all the 2 and 3-year-old 8 and 10 points get shot every year, and everyone passes the 6s. So we got a bunch of big old 6s walking around, and a lot of.
Is that not a legal buck on y'all's place?
No, it is.
Okay.
It is, but they changed it. They changed it up this year. So before there wasn't really any antler restrictions on it, or at least if there was, I don't think they enforced it very much. Mm-hmm. This year we went to a width and beam length requirement. So we'll see how that does over the next couple of years. But yeah, dude, 6 points everywhere. It's kind of obnoxious. 6 points all over the place.
Good. Well, you like 6 points.
I like 6 points, but at the same time, I'm like, all right, can we get something else now?
Keep shooting sixes. You ain't gonna shoot an 8.
Yep. Another update from my end. Me and Thomas, your brother, Hunt Kitchen, and my buddy Colton, we went squirrel hunting the other day in one of our deer spots that we're planning on hunting this fall a good bit. Had some good deer on there on camera already this year. We've got one buck out there that continues to just skirt my camera. Like, it's on this ridge point, and it's not paralleling the ridge point, like it's perpendicular to it. So it's looking across the ridge point, not down the ridge point. And there's a scrape right there, right on the middle of it. And I'll have bucks come up and work that scrape. And I've got several like really good deer working those scrapes. Probably like those deadheads behind you, about like those deer. There's one deer that's really big, but he never comes to the scrape. He's always probably 15 or 20 yards further back behind where the scrape's at, and he's not walking on the spine of the ridge. He's walking off the edge of it, kind of on that military crest. He's walking far enough away where I don't think he's triggering the camera. There'll be a deer in the scrape, and just way off in the background, you just see 2 glowing eyes and just a big old frame back there where he's just hanging in the shadow.
Elk back there?
Yeah, bro. I mean,
his frame that big?
Yeah, he looked back like that right there. So I gotta move that camera around. But we went in there and squirrel hunted. And I was kind of wondering what the mass crop did, because that's one of the places I haven't checked yet for just to see how the oaks produced. Dude, and I'm talking about bumper crop. Bumper crop. First of all, we went in there and absolutely waylaid some squirrels. It was fun.
How many did y'all kill?
We killed 21 between 3 of us. So I shot 8, which is our limit in Alabama. I shot 8. Thomas shot 8. And Colton shot 5.
So y'all 3 away from a 3-man limit.
Yep. I think it's because Colton was using a shotgun and we were using 22.
I feel like you'd rather have a 3-man limit of squirrels than 3-man limit of ducks.
Yeah. I like squirrels. I very much enjoy them.
That has upset a lot of people.
Yeah, probably so. But, man, it was a good morning. Yeah, with that 22, every time I would shoot one, there'd be multiple right there. And so when you shoot with a 22, sometimes they'll just get out of there. Like if there's 2 squirrels. A lot of times they just kind of like run around and look like they don't really know what happened. So if I got one, I usually got both of them. But at first they were feeding on some mountain chestnut oaks. And those mountain chestnut oaks just were raining. I mean, like marbles on the ground everywhere you looked. You'd slip on them in some places. And the squirrels, they were knocking some of those out. And I was like, I need to go find some white oaks. And so I went down in this bottom, and sure enough, found a couple white oaks down there. And dude, like the squirrels, when they would jump to a limb, it would drop like 5 acorns when they jumped on it. I shot one squirrel out of one of those trees, and when he was falling, he hit a limb, and it was like, I mean, it was like 30 acorns fell. Like the squirrel hit the ground, then it was like just raining. The whole ground's covered with them, dude. So I'm excited about that too. I'm gonna have to go back in there and check that out.
I couldn't believe y'all didn't give Thomas some more squirrels, man. He's trying to do some recipes. I asked him how many squirrels you come back with. He said 8. I'm like, they didn't give you no more.
Well, when I was in there, I think I'd killed 4, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna try to get a couple more. And then if Thomas doesn't do good, because Thomas
he's never squirrel hunted.
Yeah, he's like never squirrel hunted. He's hunted a couple times, he said, out on a different place, but he's only ever shot like 1 when he's gone, which is a real bummer because the squirrel's not the easiest thing in the world to clean, and there's not a ton of meat on him. So when you kill one, you're like, dang, what are you gonna do with it? I mean, it's like 1 squirrel, so you gotta save it, I guess. But anyways, I was like, I need to kill a couple more so I can give him like 3. Like 3's a good number. Like you get 3, you could eat that. Like that's a decent meal, not just like a little appetizer. And so I ended up killing my 8, and I was like, okay, sweet. If Thomas didn't get any, I'll give him 4. And then I got back out and I saw Thomas, and he just had that big old grin on his face. I'm like, how'd you do? He's like, I got my limit, baby. I was like, what? I couldn't believe he got his limit. So, because we drove kind of far to go hunt this place, and he's like, why are we driving this far to squirrel hunt? And I'm like, you'll see. So maybe now we'll have a little bit more peace and quiet when we're deer hunting in there. Thinned them out.
How fast did it take you to hit your limit?
I was done at like 9:15 or so.
Slacking a little bit, man. I thought you'd be like 7:30, just like
no,
be done with it.
No. Actually, I kept hearing some turkeys down in there. So I started out on a ridge point, and I just walked in, a little ways and sat down. And I pretty much immediately I heard 2 different groups of hens start yelping before daylight, and they kept. I was shooting these squirrels. I killed the first 3, and I could still hear them yelping down there. I'm like, sounds like they're still in the tree. Well, I kind of start easing down to where those turkeys were at because I knew there's some white oaks down there. And I see a limb shake. So like when you're squirrel hunting, you just and not hunting with dogs or anything. You usually find them with their ears first. They're either barking or they're jumping on a limb and shaking it. And you hear that limb shake. And so I heard a limb shake down there. So I start easing down into that area, and I'm like looking, just kind of scanning out through the timber, and I see a limb shake like far through all the canopies. Like I can't see the squirrel or anything. I just saw like movement back there. I'm like, okay. So I go sneaking down in there, and I get pretty close. Like when you're sneaking up on them, you just want to, first of all, you want to move when they're running up and down the tree or running on limbs. You don't want to move on them when they're sitting there actually cutting on a nut, because they're sitting there and they're like looking. They're basically in a tree stand. I mean, they're like 50 feet up there. They can see really good. So I see the limb shaking, and I'll pick a tree, and I'll like get up to that tree, and I'll look, wait for the limb to shake again. Then I'll move to another tree and get, within 30 yards. I get to within 30 yards of the squirrel, and I'm just waiting for him to come back out. And finally he comes out, and I shoot him out, and he falls. And when I shoot, a turkey flushes, and it was like 3 trees over from me and just flies off. I was like, oh, wow, okay. Sneaking skills are on point. And when I shot that squirrel out, I heard another one start barking. Like sometimes when you shoot, or when a hawk flies over or something, they'll do the thing where they're like, yeah, 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 yeah. They kind of start chattering like that. So I hear him, and he's somewhere like right here. He's in range. So I'm like looking for him, and I'm looking. And I look up, and I see a hen standing up on a limb, and she's facing like kind of away from me. And the tree, there's a big pine tree blocking her head, and I can see her up there. I was like, dang, I snuck up on a bunch of turkeys. That's pretty cool. That like never happens.
Glad you're not an outlaw.
Yeah, that hen's lucky I'm not an outlaw. Cause she was right there.
Did you use the quarters at all?
Mm-mm. The quarter trick?
Yeah, talk about it.
So sometimes when you're around squirrels, like this morning, they weren't actually moving that great. Like sometimes you'll have them where they're timbering and they're like covering ground. So they're jumping from tree to tree to tree and like going, and they're moving really well. This morning, you would see a squirrel and you get up on him. This is why it took me forever to hit the limit. I mean, not forever. I mean, it was about an average squirrel hunt. But why it wasn't super quick is because when you get up on them, they'll sit there and they'll cut a nut, and then they're already in the feed tree. They're like in the oak tree that's got all the acorns on it. So they'll sit there and they'll cut a nut, and they might be sitting on the limb 5 feet from where all the rest of the acorns are at. And so then they'll walk over there, grab another one, and walk back to their spot and eat it. So you got like short windows where they're moving and you can see them. And but sometimes if you want to get them moving when they're just kind of sitting there watching, you can get out a couple quarters or dimes or whatever that still have the ridges on the sides of them and scrape them together, and it sounds like a squirrel cutting on a nut. Like if you hear a squirrel cutting a hickory nut or something, it sounds just like that. And sometimes it'll get them to come out. So it works. It really does. But anyways, that hen was sitting up there, and I'm just like watching that hen, and I'm like filming her with my phone. I'm like, dude, I can't believe this. And when I'm filming her, I look over and I see the other squirrel, and it's just sitting on a limb, like just perfectly sitting there. I was like, uh-oh. So I get out, put the phone up, get the 22 out, just whiff. I mean, just miss this thing. Hen stays there. I've shot twice now next to this hen. Squirrel runs up, gets on another limb, starts running up the side of a tree. And it's tough in early season when they're moving like that. Like you kind of look at where they're going. You got to find a window, and then I'll aim at my little opening. And then when they get into it, I'll try to shoot them. So he gets into my opening and stops for just a second. Pow! Miss him again. I'm like, oh. So then the squirrel runs and jumps in the pine tree with the turkey that is still sitting there, and runs up and gets like on a limb in front of the turkey. So I can't shoot it because I'll hit the turkey. I was like, what is this squirrel doing? And then it finally jumps over onto the trunk next to the turkey, like 5 feet to the right. Shoot again, and this time I get it. I kill him, and he falls out. And the turkey still just stands there. I was like, dude, what's wrong with this turkey? And then I take my phone out again, and I just start filming it. And it sits there for like 5 minutes. And then finally, she turns around, and she's like looking around, starts clucking, and then she flies off and does a cackle. Got it on film. It was pretty cool. So I went and picked up those 2 squirrels and then shot 2 more, and that was my limit.
What skill sets do you think you learn really well from getting proficient at squirrel hunting that transfers to deer hunting?
Oh, dude. There's a couple things. All the benefits of squirrel hunting, which is squirrel season like everywhere right now. So if you're listening to this and you have a shotgun or a 22, you should go squirrel hunt. First of all, it makes you find feed trees. So even if you have a real spotty mash crop that year, the squirrels are going to be on those feed trees. Last year we had a very, very spotty acorn crop pretty much everywhere that we hunted. And in this particular area that I was squirrel hunting, it was even spotty last year, even though it's a lot of hardwoods. And I hunted around and I found this one valley that was like nothing but white oaks, and they all produced. It was on a creek, so they had their water and everything. And I was sitting there one morning and there was like 9 squirrels in front of me at one time. And they were all just knocking out acorns. And that area was absolutely covered with bucks specifically. That deadhead actually came from that spot. And put 2 cameras in there, and that's where I ended up getting like all the nice deer on camera last year. They were all concentrated right there around that little valley. So 1, it helps you find the feed trees. 2, it teaches you how to stalk and move quietly through the woods, because a squirrel is not like a turkey or whatever. Like, they don't have incredible eyesight or anything like that, but they are wary. I mean, you can't just walk up to them most of the time. So it's going to teach you some fundamentals of how to be quiet when you're walking, how to not all the things that you maybe don't think of that alert animals that do. So like a big one with squirrels is like you can't bump into vines, you can't bump into saplings, because it's like a flag waving. You bump into a sapling and it's a lot more than just you kind of slipping and moving through the woods. All of a sudden this thing's doing this for a minute or 2, and that gives them a much better opportunity to see you. So it teaches you some fundamentals like that, keeping some kind of cover between you and an animal, whether you're stalking a deer, whether you're out west hunting somewhere. Like how do I read the landscape in front of me and say, okay, if I want to make it this extra 100 yards, I need to look around. I need to figure out what I can put between the animal and myself and I need to go to this tree, and then I need to go to that tree, and then I should go to that one. And you just kind of like zigzag through the woods, and teaches you how to sneak. And then one of the most important things I think it teaches you is, like I was talking about with that squirrel that was running all over that tree that the turkey was in. It teaches you how to shoot accurately in a short amount of time at awkward positions. So most of the time when I'm shooting at them, it's not like I'm sitting there resting on my knee level. Like a lot of them I was like this, aiming straight up in the air, or I maybe was on a hill and I was having to like lean around a tree or whatever the case may be, like just rest on whatever I have, or even shooting freehand where I wrap the sling around my arm and everything. So it teaches you trigger control and being able to pull off a shot really fast in a situation where you might only have 3 seconds to shoot a squirrel, because they run and then they stop, and they run and then they stop, they run and then they stop. So you've got to be like, he's about to go through that gap. His head's going to be about right here because I'm trying to head shoot him. And so get my gun in the gap, wait for the squirrel to get into the gap, and then I got to adjust and shoot like that. So I think it's fundamentals, very transferable. It's fun. They taste good. Helps you find feed trees. Helps you shoot better. Helps you sneak. Why would you not do it?
But and when you say shoot better, you're talking specifically with 22, not necessarily with a shotgun.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like the advantage for trigger control and all that kind of stuff and getting your shot placements is go hunt with a 22.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I would definitely recommend that. It's still fun to hunt them. I mean, I got nothing against shooting them with a shotgun. Usually, when we were growing up, in early season, we would hunt with shotguns. And in late season, we'd hunt with 22s because it's harder to get close to them in the later season. But I've gotten to where I just like hunting with a 22.
Now, what would you say to people that are like, squirrels are easy to hunt? Because they're thinking of like a neighborhood squirrel versus like one that's out in the...
Tell me you don't squirrel hunt without telling me you don't squirrel hunt. I mean, sure, every once in a while you get just a kind of stupid squirrel that's not that hard to get, but it's the difference between if you're going to go out and you're going to shoot one squirrel, like kind of on accident, or if you're going to go out and you're going to try to shoot a limit of squirrels. Like, there's a big difference.
And that's another thing. It's like, because I think Travis Murray had talked about that when we did an episode with him, literally about transfer skills of small game hunting, specifically squirrel hunting, to deer hunting. And he's like, like set the challenge to go shoot a limit of squirrels. Like if it's 8 where you're at, shoot 8. If it's 6, shoot 6. If it's 10, shoot 10. Whatever the limit is, and try to get that done, not in a neighborhood setting.
Yeah.
And you'll learn a lot, and it's a lot harder than you think it is. So, anyways, that'd be a good challenge for everybody. I got to get mine. Me and Emmy were crappie fishing, and dude, I was ripping lips, and all of a sudden, she hands me the phone. She's like, the boys went squirrel hunting. And I'm like, what are you talking about? They're like, yeah, they killed a bunch of squirrels. And I looked at it. It was a tailgate full of squirrels. I was like, oh my God. I'm like, dang, that's fun. Crap. I'm like, well, okay. Appreciate the invite. It would have.
I knew you were going down.
Yeah.
You know, I knew you wouldn't be able to come.
But
your ears were probably burning. Jacob's like, or Thomas was like, why didn't Jacob ever come to fun stuff like this? I'm like, I don't know, bro.
Dude, crop fishing was fun, bro. Listen, brought the LiDAR out playing video games with us. Dude, that was a blast.
Hey, I'll tell you another thing about squirrel hunting too, by the way, is that it's kind of like really any kind of small game hunting is like this. And even turkey hunting's like this too. If you're a deer hunter first, but you do these other things, whether it's turkey, rabbit, squirrel, whatever, bird hunting, it's gonna drag you into places that you probably wouldn't go to otherwise. And so you're just going to end up learning more of your area, seeing more of your area, getting really familiar with the lay of the land. You know, I mentioned in Georgia, I was trying to, in a lot of the spots we went to, I was consciously trying to not look at the map while I was in there. Because one problem that I definitely have is when I'm out in the woods, I'm always trying to worry about what the big picture is. And so if I'm sitting there and I find something, I'll immediately pull out my map and first I'll mark it. But then I'll sit there and I'll zoom out on the map and I'll be looking around and be like, oh, maybe they're going to this, maybe they're going to that. There's a saddle over here. There's a thicket right there. And I almost feel like I'm trying to consume too much information at one time. So like in Georgia, I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to go and I'm just going to read sign. Like when I was a kid, I'm going to go in, just read sign, not look at the map. Outside of checking property lines, outside of marking stuff, I'm not going to sit there and try to figure them out on my phone while I'm standing in the woods. Mm-hmm. And I did that same way with the squirrel hunt. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to turn my tracker on so I know where I went and everything. But when I go in here, I'm not going to look at the map when I'm walking in to go find a spot. I'm just going to walk in. I'm going to let my ears and my eyes tell me where to go. And then when I come back out, I'm just going to find my way out. I'm not going to try to navigate out with my phone or anything like that. And so you kind of force yourself to go locate different things that you probably wouldn't find otherwise. So I feel like there's a big benefit to that too, especially we talk a lot about map scouting and it's great, but I'm starting to think it's best done at the house, like not so much when you're out there, for instance. So that's going to be a little experiment. I'm going to kind of keep that theme up for the rest of this year, where if I'm going to map scout, I'm going to do it on my computer at the house. And then outside of a couple things in the field, I'm going to try to keep my phone in my pocket as much as possible when I'm actually in the woods and see how that does. And I found a nice little thermal hub, had a big scrape in it, found a bunch of rubs down in there. Colton and Thomas, when we got back, I was like, what kind of buck sign did y'all see? What kind of feed sign did you see?
Did y'all find any fresh rubs?
I think Thomas might have. I didn't find any fresh rubs though. Nothing fresh.
Any scrapes you didn't know about?
Yeah. I'd never actually been in the area I was squirrel hunting. So normally when I go to this particular spot, I'll walk in, cross a creek, and kind of head up into the area I like to hunt. It's pretty far from the road. This time, instead of going right there, I basically went off to the left, like 200 or 300 yards, and then walked in right there, and then just walked in like 50 yards off the road and sat down and listened. Heard one barking, kind of eased down in there with him, and then I didn't go super far off the road. I was kind of almost paralleling this road I was hunting off of a decent bit. And yeah, I'd never even walked any of that. I was actually trying to go to a further thermal hub that I'd found at home. And I was like, I just need to angle up towards that thing and go see what it looks like. Cause I've been all around it, but I've never been into it. And I'd never made it that far. I made it like halfway there before I limited. Mm-hmm. And, we were going to meet back up at like 9:45. So I was like, I'm just going to scout my way back out. So then I took a different way out and just kind of felt my way around. Went through this little pine thicket that was in there that I didn't know was there. So it was productive. I found all kinds of stuff I didn't know was there.
So good scouting strategy, but also skill set learning. Just by squirrel hunting. Like you learn a lot. You can get better at slipping, walk through the woods, stalking, shooting, all that. What's your favorite squirrel recipe?
That's a tough one. I really like how Benny cooks them. Ben George.
And the
Ben
gravy
George.
and everything?
Yeah, that's pretty good.
How's he cook them?
Basically, what Benny likes to do is he likes to put them in a brine. So when it comes to brining a squirrel, he does like a basic saltwater brine. Like literally just sets them in salt water for a couple days sometimes in the fridge. I like to do, if you like to spice it up a little bit, you can throw some other stuff in your brine. You could chop up some celery, onions, carrots, and do like a herbal kind of thing. Put some spices in there, and imparts a little bit of flavor. If you add some acidity to it, it'll help tenderize the squirrels a little bit because they can be tough. So like a brine. And then what Benny does is he'll take them out and he'll bread them and fry them in a pan, heavy on the salt and pepper, and then he'll make like a sawmill gravy, and then he'll put the fried squirrel in the gravy and simmer it for like an hour. And then it's like fall off the bone, super tender. That's really good. You gotta take a nap after you eat it though. I mean, it's pretty heavy.
Get some biscuits with it, baby.
Mm-hmm. The other way I really like just any small game is throwing it in a gumbo. That's good. So I'll do like a small game gumbo.
Yeah.
And I'll throw like some freaking rabbit, some squirrel, turkey legs.
So Thomas was telling me, he's like, I think I'm going to do a squirrel gumbo. I'm like, don't do a squirrel gumbo. Like, you can do a squirrel gumbo if you want. Like, there's so many other recipes I think would be interesting for people to see. It's like, you need to do a squirrel pot pie.
Oh,
Substitute chicken for squirrel. Do a pot pie with it. It's different. Probably delicious.
Yep.
And I'm like, you can do a gumbo, but it's like, don't do it all in the gumbo. Try some other stuff.
Oh yeah. Well, he's got enough. He could do a couple different things with them. There's a lot of good recipes out there. One that got popular a couple years ago with Meat Eater's Cookbook was their little buffalo squirrel legs. So instead of doing a chicken wing, you do like little hot legs with a squirrel, and that can be good. You just gotta, like I said, I feel like you really need to marinate them in something acidic, so it breaks down those muscles a little bit and makes them tender. So whatever the case may be, like just anything acidic. People use like lime juice or like one time I used kiwis. That was good.
One you can use, but you got to do it quick because if you let it sit for a while to go to mush, is pineapple juice.
Oh yeah,
Dude, that will tenderize on it so fast, but dude, don't let it sit in there very long.
Yep.
So you set that in there for a day, dude, it will come back and there won't be nothing left. It's like, I don't know if
that's kind of how those
pineapple.
kiwis were. One time we were cooking some wild pig meat from a pig I'd shot a couple years back, and this for some reason this pig was like tough. I don't know if it was just a pig or if I did something wrong, but a lot of the meat was tough, and I was cooking it for my in-laws, so I'm like, I want them to like it, you know. And we were cooking over at their house, and they had like a bunch of old kiwis in the fridge. And I was like, I'll try that because I didn't have anything else like acidic. So I just cut the kiwis up and put them in a blender and blended them up, and then marinated the pork in that for like 30 minutes. And I kept a couple pieces of the pork outside of it, and then put the rest of it in that little kiwi bath. 30 minutes to an hour, grilled them. It was like two different pieces of meat. I mean, it's completely different. So acidity is your friend if you're trying to tenderize the meat a little bit. Definitely try that out.
So squirrel hunting, I did some crappie fishing. Nothing right home about other than just catching a bunch of crappie, which is super fun. I love it. God.
Yeah.
So if I lived on a lake, I mean, if I lived on a lake, it'd be different. I was telling him, his dad, I'm like, listen, if I had a boat rigged up correct, and not necessarily had the time, but had a boat rigged up correct, I might look at deer hunting a little bit different. I'd still deer hunt quite a bit, but like there'd be a lot of days, kind of like what Scott Seals talks about. If the conditions aren't right, he's hitting the water crappie fishing.
Yep.
And I'm like, I get that.
Yep.
I get it.
I can't blame him.
Yeah. But other than that, don't really have anything else.
What I wanted to ask you, let's see, let me think what week it was. So 2 weeks ago, I guess, we had Mo Shepherd on, talking about rub lines, hunting rub lines and things of that nature. What's your thoughts on that? Because we rarely talk to people who actually hunt rub lines.
Yeah. I was actually listening to it, kind of get a refresher. I mean, the clearly it works for him. He has a lot of success. It's just one of those things that you don't see that come up very often, especially from someone from the South.
Mm-hmm.
I know people that would hunt, I think we've had guys talk about hunting scrapes in correlation with big rubs, but not really so much sitting there because of the rubs. Like, it's just nice to see them.
Mm-hmm.
I think every deer hunter, if they see a big rub or a handful of big rubs, he gets really excited.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's hard not to. But as a guy like him, and one thing he mentioned, which I thought was really interesting, most of his rub lines that he's hunting are in correlation to some kind of pinch point in the mountains. It's a lot about like the head of a draw.
Mm-hmm.
The head of a draw, and them coming around the top of that to kind of go from one secondary ridge to the next secondary ridge or whatever. But an important factor, he said, was it's not just having fresh rubs. It's having historical rubs, old rubs there, in addition to fresh rubs, in multiple of them. And he said size doesn't really matter all that much.
Yeah.
Which I thought was interesting too. So it's not just like, oh, I'm looking for big rubs. He's like, I'm just looking for quantity and where it shows that there's multiple years of use around this terrain feature, and I'm hunting that. And also him talking about, which I saw this in Georgia because we found a bunch of buck sign in Georgia. I did rubs, scrapes, but the way the rub's facing and what is it around based off when he's going to hunt it. You know, he's talking about like, you know, if you get rubs that are facing a clear cut going up into a clear cut, well, that's clearly him going back to bed, rubbing, going back to bed. Like, he's in that clear cut, so you probably just need to hunt that in the mornings. That's not his exit route necessarily coming out of that clear cut in the evenings. He said vice versa with the clear cuts, some kind of cover. But he said around those drainages, a lot of those rubs they're kind of facing both directions, and it's more of just a travel corridor. And he's like, you're not really hunting bedding, you're not really hunting food, you're just hunting a good pinch point up in the mountains that at some point of the day they could walk through it.
Yep.
So it could be at night, could be at 9 o'clock in the morning, could be at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Who knows when they're coming through there. So I found it really interesting. It's one of those things that's like, I hope we get some listener success stories from it. Mm-hmm. And if so, I want to know the circumstance of how the rubs played a factor.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, still the biggest deer I've ever seen in the South, in Tennessee, hunting public land. I found that spot. We walked in there blind. Well, I say blind, looked at on maps on Onyx, but I've never walked in there. And me and Nick walked in there. I dropped him off. I forgot I was deer hunting with him that morning. Dropped him off in the spot. Oh, I walking in. I kept going another half mile. And what got me to sit there on aerial imagery, it was 3 habitat edges. Like 2 of them were real subtle, and there was a little drainage. They all came together in this one spot on the side of this finger point that went up to private. And when I got in there, there was fresh rubs, like going up that habitat edge, kind of going up to that private land. And I sat up there and ended up having a huge deer come by right at daylight, literally coming right up that rub line. So I've seen that. I just haven't had success killing a deer, and I didn't kill that deer. Freaking, I will never hunt with a single shot rifle ever again. It wasn't because I missed him, because the sucker, it was so calm that morning. He knew something was up. He started stomping. He's 35 yards from me. I go to cock the hammer back, and he goes ding, ding, clicks and dings in place. Nope. And he just came up. There was no problem. I mean, I was looking out through the scope. The second the hammer came back, he just came unglued, jumped behind some Chinese privet, and was gone. I'm like, I ain't doing that again. I'm just flicking a safety off and shooting. Forget pulling that hammer back. But yeah, I mean, I get more excited about rubs, especially not necessarily in Alabama, but if I'm hunting other states that have a November rut, October, I get excited about rubs. Like, really excited about rubs. Like, I got excited about rubs when we were in Georgia. Yep. Because Greg was saying, you know, they rut a little earlier over there. And dude, I found a big line of rubs that were going up into a clear cut in private. And we found it. It was an afternoon hunt. Me and Caden went in there, and there's white oaks right there. But I'm like, I don't want to hunt this because this is clearly like his path. He's going in the mornings. Like, I don't want to sit in the afternoon. I probably ain't gonna see anything. So we kept working around. But now I'm kicking myself for not sitting in that spot that following morning.
So is that the morning? Then that's
got gar hold. Yes.
Well,
I was like, man, I kind of want to sit that spot, but I'm like, what's the likelihood he's going to come back through there? I don't know. But rubs are fresh, big rubs too. It was the biggest 3 rubs I'd seen the whole trip. And anyways, I should have done it. But it kind of goes back to that first question we had talking about property lines. I mean, to set up, you get right off the water, but to the property line was probably 70 yards maybe, which that's far enough. But I was a little nervous. I'm like, I know if I shoot that deer, he is going in that cut. Unless he's swimming, he ain't going left or right. He's going right into that cut.
Yep.
So
better make a good shot.
Yeah, you got to get him stopped before get him stopped before he gets there.
Other thing I wanted to ask you about is the episode with Joe and Bo Martonic. Went up there to Pennsylvania, interviewed them. Joe had been on your radar for quite a while because he's been on Bo's podcast. I don't think he's done anybody else's.
No.
And I didn't even really know what we were going up there to talk to him about because you set up most of those interviews. And the discussion around ground hunting with a bow.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
Oh, yeah.
That was cool.
Yeah, I've heard him talk about that with Bo before on East Meets West podcast. And Joe Martonic, Bo's dad, I just knew from him being on Bo's show, he's a very consistent bow hunter on public land up there in the mountains of kind of northern PA. And I knew he did some ground hunting, but I didn't know that's what he kills most of his deer doing. I didn't know that aspect of it. And I didn't know the calling aspect with the ground hunting with a bow. Because I'm like, listen, I'm doing that in Alabama, but because of how the rut happens here later and gun season opens a little earlier, I've got a very specific gun I'm taking for those kind of hunts.
What's the gun?
A Ruger Model 44. A little carbine, shoots 4.4 Magnum, gun weighs 5.5 pounds.
Yep.
Compact little sucker. It would be sweet for that.
Basically a Ruger 1022 that shoots 44 mags.
Yeah, it literally looks like if I gave it to somebody, they're like, that's a big barrel in that 1022. I'm like, because it looks like the same receiver and everything, but it's got internal tubular magazine like a shotgun. Holds I think it's 4+1 or 5+1, 44 mag. Shells, but anyways, that's what I want to use for that.
You gonna run a red dot scope?
I've already got it on there. It's a Vortex. God, you would ask me. It's I think it's the Strike Eagle 1x8 with a lit reticle. So on one power, on one power with both eyes open, it's like a red dot, bro. So it's a variable zoom, low power. I think they call them a LVPO, low variable powered optic. But dude, it is sick. It's going to be awesome for that. Just walking around with one power, it is literally like red dot. You throw up. Oh, it'd be good.
Dude.
But if you need to stretch it out a little bit, 80, 100 yards, you can crank it up to 8 power if you want to.
Hey, let's go shoot next week.
I know, I need to.
Let's go shoot that thing.
I need to. I got to go buy some ammo for that, for Emmy's rifle. I don't need any more for mine. I got plenty for my
What's
guns.
Emmy going to shoot?
My Remington 700 and 6mm Remington.
Sweet.
So their version of 243.
Okay.
Beautiful little gun. Kind of small. It's kind of compact too. It's not really a youth stock, but I don't think
Short.
It's not full length. And it's light recoil because I just don't need her getting scoped. So I'm like, you're not shooting my gun, and you definitely ain't shooting my 338 Win Mag. You ain't shooting none of those other rifles I got. That is the gun for you. That's the smallest gun I got. It should work good. So
sweet. Yeah, it's going to be fun. I cannot wait to try that ground hunting. I can't wait to film you with that little 44.
You film me walk through a cut?
Oh, yeah, I'll film you.
Listen, you might be quiet walking with Squirrel, but bro, you ain't going to be quiet enough, dude.
Oh, boy.
Hey, we'll start rattling or something. I'll let you go kick another ant pile, break your toe again.
Yeah, we'll be like elk hunting, where they thrash trees and stuff.
Hey, one thing we didn't talk about, but by the time this episode comes out, our episode with Muscle Gamekeepers podcast has come out.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so y'all go check those out. Go check that episode out. It's on YouTube and Apple, Spotify, all those podcast platforms. But I had a funny episode, and I think you told that story about you breaking your toe. I think, because we were talking about calling on that episode.
Yeah, we talked about it. Yeah. So yeah, if you want to learn how I broke my toe rattling for a buck, go listen to the Gamekeepers podcast.
Yeah, Muscle Gamekeepers. But yeah, I know I'm excited. I think that would work really, really good. Really good.
Yeah, especially on your club.
Yeah. Because there's big expanses of pines that aren't big enough to get a climber in.
Mm-hmm.
You get a lock on them, but you won't be able to see anything. but on the ground you can see underneath it a little bit,
Oh my gosh.
especially the side off the section they just acquired.
Yes.
Shoot.
Shoot.
There it is.
Oh, I cannot wait. That's
Dude.
going to be fun.
Like, week after Christmas, or actually not Christmas, about Thanksgiving and on.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. It'll be killer.
Oh, I cannot wait.
So anyways, no, I'm real excited. But yeah, I love that episode with Joe and Bo. Joe and Bo.
Joe and Bo.
Yeah, Martonic. But yeah, that's a great episode. So like, if y'all haven't listened to that one, go back and check that episode out. I think it'd be super helpful. I think we'll get a lot of listener success stories from guys. As long it kind of goes back to squirrel hunting.
Mm-hmm.
If you go out and go squirrel hunt a little bit, I know deer season's pretty much open everywhere now, or getting close to being open. But if you can go squirrel hunt for a little bit, like it's not a great day to deer hunt, it's hot or the wind's bad, whatever, go squirrel hunt.
Mm-hmm.
Work on your sneaking skills, and then apply that to that ground hunting and calling.
Oh, yeah.
Dude.
Even during deer season, man, like we kept mentioning Benny, but when we were growing up, like when that buck, when he rubbed that tree in front of me, I was talking about that cedar, like years and years ago, that was during deer season that happened. I just had a 22, but we squirrel hunted on up into deer season. And one thing that Benny always likes to do, he still does this. It'll be deer season, and he will go right into an area with a 22. He'll squirrel hunt it and use that as his scouting. And he does not care one thing about shooting a 22 in there a bunch of times, walking through it,
Oh yeah.
doesn't care about it.
Well,
He's not like it's going to ruin my spot.
Well, he's not bow hunting really anyway, so he's kind of using that as a way to scout
Mhm.
to get the gun season, which is like early pre-rut time frame.
Yep.
To then know where he's going to be deer hunting at. And that's, like, he talks about it all the time, like rabbit hunting and squirrel hunting. He's like, that's how I found my spot. Like his big 8-point he killed like 2 years ago. I think he found it rabbit hunting.
Yep.
And he was like, well, I'm going to go in there, and went in there the first opportunity on the public lane with a rifle and killed that sucker.
Killed a big
Yeah,
buck.
killed a hammer. And I'm like, huh, okay. And he's like, that's like the greatest example of like, not blowing your wad too early.
Yes.
And like, kind of, keeping the gunpowder dry, I think, as you say.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can kill one early for sure, but it's like, if you're not confident and you don't really know what you're, where to go and have good early season spots, just go squirrel hunt. Find, learn an area, be scouting as you're hunting, and
Yep.
then figure out where that new sign's popping up at, and then apply that to when you can get back out there and go deer hunt.
Yeah, dude. Well, that's exciting. I can't wait.
Yep.
It's going to be good. Getting
Sweet.
close to Bama opening up, so going to have a lot to talk about here.
Shoot, by the time, I mean, you'll be coming back from your trip, but I might be hunting Alabama before you get back.
Yep.
So
Yeah, parts of Bama will be open.
yeah,
Will be open.
roll
Cool.
tide. Roll tide. But no, appreciate everybody watching the podcast. Thank y'all for listening. And we'll catch you back here on the next episode from the Southern Outdoorsmen. And remember, guys, y'all stay Southern.